Man, listen to me. This is Mark's market overview and trading research. Petrino, that is more impressive than your skill with the stock market. I'm not going to lie to you. That's impressive stuff.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Well, whatever, man. I don't know anybody else that plays classical guitar to that level. I don't know anybody that plays classical guitar.
yeah, at some point I got to pick it up and start playing again.
You do. It'll probably relieve some stress.
It's
So,
hard though, It's classical guitar is a hard. Some people say it's the hardest instrument that there is to play, and I would, I would probably. I mean, I've never really played anything else other than bass, but I would kind of concur with that.
I can see it. Man, I'm getting ready for some football. I can't wait. We going to the Super Bowl this year.
I'm actually
Watch
looking
us.
forward to the season because at least there's something new going on with the Patriots, man. For a while there, it just got so like, Brady and Belichick is so friggin' overrated, man. He really is. He's nothing without Tom Brady. He was nothing when he was on the Browns coach, and he was nothing after Brady left New England. So I think it's pretty
Pretty
self
obvious.
evident.
Pretty obvious. Yes, sir.
It's like, and then I got sick of the whole thing with like, Deflate Gate. I mean, it's like, come on, man. And the thing about that was there were two gauges. One of the gauges said the balls were fine. The other gauge said they were slightly under pumped or whatever. So it's like, I'm supposed to believe that some 65-year-old guy went into the men's room and within 30 seconds let air out of all these balls, and then Brady gets suspended for 4 days or 4 games and has $1 million fine.
Well, listen, as a Dolphins fan, I truly believe the Patriots are cheaters and always have been just because I know Belichick. We got the snowplow incident. That right there is top of the list. If you don't consider that,
But that wasn't cheating at the time. It wasn't illegal at the time.
oh, that was
There's no
rude,
rule
though.
against it.
That was rude.
I remember that game. Do you know that if
I
in
remember that game
up at
too.
Gillette Stadium, where they have like the Patriots Museum, that snowplow is hanging over the entrance. It's like
Ugh, ugh, ugh.
well, you know what the biggest cheating scandal in the history of sports is? All right, in my opinion, forget the White Sox.
Would it be the
And
locker room when the Oakland A's or the Oakland Raiders bugged the locker room in '81?
no, it's John Elway and the Broncos when they tried to get around the salary cap by giving him like interest from the bonds of the part. I mean, they did lose a first round draft pick. They did have to pay $1 million fine. I don't know why anyone ever talks about that. But let's just say Deflategate was true, which is not. Okay. That or even Spygate. All right. So Belichick says, "Hey, dude, go see if you can film these guys' signals." Right. That's like one or two people. In order for the Broncos to pull off what they did, like everyone needed to know: the accounting department, the finance department, the front
Oh
office, the back
yeah, oh
office.
yeah, it was a fully loaded deal. That's for sure. Mary, we were just talking about how the Dolphins got cheated by the Patriots before. So many times it's not even funny. You know,
Every team cheats, man.
yeah,
When I used to work I did a little bit of work at Giant Stadium, um, back when I was in college, and the guys that work there, right? If there's one end of the field where they could open the doors and let the wind blow in. So if the other team was kicking a field goal at that end zone, they would open the doors to let the wind in.
that's
So
not cheating though. That's just being smart with your conditions. The snowplow was cheating. I know they didn't have it as a rule then, but that snowplow was a cheater.
hey man, you know what? As long as they win, I don't care.
I know. So how's Nvidia looking this morning?
Uh, this is your classic example of your buy in the rumor, sell on the news thing, right? I mean, the numbers were blowouts, and the stock is down. Nvidia slips as results underwhelm investors. Yeah, I mean, they as far as I know, I think they beat their earnings and so forth and so on. But the
Listen, I
stock is
think what
down.
you said. I think what you said last night in your video is probably and from now that I've been with you a few years, I can see that happening when stocks get exhausted and everybody's bought it that's going to buy it. Even if good earnings come in, they always go down.
Yeah, it's the psychology. I mean, look at this, right? Wells Fargo upgrades the price. Deutsche Bank increases the price target. So Morgan Stanley increases the price target. So this shows you that the numbers were good, but the stock is still down. And yeah, and it looks like the SMCI, that news finally caught up with it yesterday. The Hindenburg research, and I was looking at this, and dude, this is some. Where is it now? Down to 426. I mean, 355. I think is where I get interested, but who knows, you know? But I was looking at this Hindenburg research,
Listen,
and
this thing with them selling computer parts to Russia, that's a big deal. They're not supposed to be selling anything to Russia at this point. They've been on this list to not get any kind of technical stuff like this sold to Russia. So that's huge. That really is.
yeah. So
And
I mean, I probably knew this, but I don't remember. But back in 2018, they got delisted from NASDAQ for failing to file financial statements.
well, you know, yesterday they postponed their financial information. They were supposed to send something out yesterday, and they didn't.
Yeah, yeah, they had to pay the SEC, so they've been in trouble for. I guess they had some big, scandals, and all these people got fired, and then they all got hired back, and now that they're doing like the same thing that they used to do.
Hmm.
Um, Relationships seem oddly circular, but look at this. I mean, you know, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the government imposed stringent restrictions. So Supermicro disclosed that some of its products were subject to export bans, but I guess they lied about that. Ex- Exports of Supermicro's high-tech components have spiked to Russia, have spiked up 3 times. Wow. So they're
So
still
that's what I
selling stuff.
mean.
So supposedly we're like at war with Russia, but
Well, we're
we're
not
still
at war
selling
with
stuff.
Russia, but they have those sanctions on them, and those sanctions do not allow our companies to sell them electronic components because those electronic components go into the ballistic missiles, the hyperballistic missiles, or supersonic missiles, or whatever they've got now. And so, super microcomputer has been selling to the enemy.
Well, my suspicion is that it keeps going down, or that's what I would think.
Mary, were you talking about what we mentioned on Nvidia, where everybody's bought it right now, and so the stock went down even though it had good earnings? Is that what you mean by buyback?
Yeah, look at this. Like, so here's your old descending triangle pattern there. Yeah, a lot of times when you get to support, if you want to know if it's going to break or not, if you see these lower highs leading into it, there's a good chance it's going to break, and that's what happened here. So back in, I guess, last year, a year ago in August, and then in January, this 355 level was resistance. So I think if we get there, we bounce, but I don't know. I would not be comfortable owning this because those are some pretty serious allegations, and I don't think the company's come out to like refute them or deny them or anything. So
No.
anyway, so we got that. We got Nvidia. Let's see what the other stories are here. Yeah, here the dumb money poured into Nvidia ahead of its results. It just it just shows you. It's like if
I didn't see that, Mary, but probably. Are they offering a buyback, Mark?
Nvidia.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let me see. I didn't hear that. Nvidia. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't see that.
Oh no, let me look into it a little bit, Mary.
Excuse me. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, and I think oil is. Let's go on over to the oil markets here. Yeah, not really that much, but we had this big move higher. I think we're going to start to go higher again here. Let's see what the S&P is doing. Da, da, da. I mean, I guess kind of flat, but we've been talking about this range here down the bottom is 553. Look at yesterday's low trade, 555. So, got within 2 points. Actually, that's let me see something here. Oh, you know what? I got to adjust my price here. See, when I kind of trued it up a little bit, I didn't change the price that is here on the screen. So let me change this to 554.50. 554.50, or that's what we used to call a half back in the old days.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So where was yesterday's low trade? 555.04. So we're talking about a $550 stock, and we got within 54 cents of where this was here, and then we reversed. So once again, it just shows you how, especially with these ETFs, man, some of these price levels can be so precise.
So, Mark, they offered a 50 billion share repurchase program. So, will that make the shares bounce today?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, the way I look at this is, they had good numbers, and the stock was down, and it's down in the pre-market. So there's probably going to be some follow through. Where is it trading? Around 121. Yeah, I guess yesterday in the close it was trading even lower. But no, I think that forget the earnings. It's about the psychology, and it's like if everyone who wants to buy the stock owns it, no one's left to buy it. Now there's going to be people who are disappointed with the earnings, and they're going to be selling, and they're going to have a hard time finding buyers because people really loaded the boat before these earnings came out.
Right.
So it's a good chance it goes down, and that's our old buy on the rumor, sell on the news, or the crowded trade. They both referred to like the same thing.
Yeah, Steve, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. That's why those sanctions don't ever work. They might as well just not have them in place.
I'm sure you're going to be watching the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz interview tonight on CNN. You know what? It just really infuriates me, man. All these people are like, oh, she's so great. She's so great. On day one, I'm going to try to reduce prices. It's like, you're still the current vice president. Why isn't today day one? Right?
Well, right. Well, no. She's had plenty of time. And listen, Joe's been on vacation for 3 weeks. So who's running the show? He's been on vacation.
I don't think anyone really is, actually.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, and then I listened to Kirby yesterday say that she's got her own national security team. She's got all this. So she's actually the president at this moment. And so it's a mess. So you got a next level down for NVIDIA before we move on, Mark?
Well, you know what? Let's face the facts, man. She got to where she is by having sex with a guy that was married and was twice her age.
Yeah.
And that's the fact. I don't know, maybe 108, 109, I think is where I would be looking for a bounce. It's people. Where's the Me Too movement when that happened?
Right.
Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like, geez.
It's selective use of those movements, man. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could look at hypocrisy. I mean, look at Bill Clinton. Bill flew on the Laredo Express like 47 times. So Bill's got a bit of a checkered past, but he's the dawn of the Democrats. So I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of upsetting to watch how the whole thing is just one side's flipped up on its head and the other side's always beat down by the media. And honestly, journalism's supposed to be this free, open thinking where you actually question things and you look at both sides of an issue and you present those facts to people. But that's not what we have anymore.
And what's amazing is these people can be wrong so many times. And, look at Joe Scarborough. Who, I despise him, man. If I ever ran into Joe Scarborough on the street, and I might because he lives over in New Canaan, I'd probably punch him. This is a guy that 2 months ago was talking about how Joe Biden was the sharpest he's ever been in his life.
Right. I saw
it. So, isn't that enough that people might be like, you know what, this guy's an idiot. I'm not going to listen to him anymore.
I honestly think people have such a short attention span. I mean, if you mention Fast and Furious to most people, they don't even know what you're talking about. Oh, that movie? Yeah. But they don't remember that's gun running deal with the DEA and Obama with the drug cartels. It's just a gigantic bloody mess. And until we get off of this 1 day regurgitation of new issues showing up and problems coming out, we're never going to get to be able to move past where we're at, and we're going to go
And
down as
how
a
about the whole
society.
Black Lives Matter movement? The whole thing was founded on a fraud
Yeah,
that the cop stopped Michael Brown because he was black. No, he stopped him because the guy just robbed a store. All right.
yeah, yeah.
Hands up, don't shoot. Eric Holder is probably the most racist attorney general that we've had since the Civil War. And they went down there and they tried everything to pin it on that cop. And it turns out, his hands weren't up. He was going after the cop to try to steal his gun.
Yeah.
I don't care what color you are, dude. White, blue, green. You try to steal a cop's gun, there's a really good chance he's going to light your ass up and shoot
You're
you.
getting shot. Yep. That's exactly what should happen. I mean, seriously.
So the whole movement was founded on a myth, and they've never paid taxes. The leaders are supposed to be these communists who go out and buy $1 million mansions with the money that people like my progressive niece gives to them.
It's not very communist.
I know, it's such a friggin' joke, man. It really is a joke. And when I was trying to raise neighborhood awareness and raise money to buy the land across the street here, I would go to certain houses, and the ones that had the Black Lives Matter signs, and these are, limousine liberals, because I live in an area where
Yeah.
really nice area. So I'd always throw in the shot like, oh yeah, and if we get some progressive Black Lives Matter person on the board, they're going to turn that into low income housing. And those are the people that get their checkbooks the fastest. It's like, boom, it's like
Good
not
for
in my
thee and
neighborhood.
not for me. Good for thee and not for me. It's the way
Yeah.
it's always been, man.
All right. So financials are moving ahead here. They look pretty good. I would suspect that tech is probably down because of NVIDIA, but let's see.
I believe
Yeah, so
JP
tech is down
Morgan's
about
near an
30
all-time
basis
high.
points. What's that?
JP Morgan, I believe, was at an all-time high yesterday. It was like 220, 225.
Yeah, not surprising because the financial sector is at an all-time high here. Let me just see that again. Yeah, so it's not surprising because JP Morgan is one of the biggest stocks
Yeah.
in that sector. So let's take a look at JP Morgan here. Yeah, all-time high. And this is, this is like what you want if you're long. It's this nice kind of slow and steady
Yeah.
move higher. Things that get jacked up really fast, they tend to reverse really fast. And here's a little bit of your classic flag, what we would call a flag formation right here, which is when you think about these patterns, you got to think about like what it is that they are actually illustrating. And a flag is a break in the trend. Some of the people who are driving this thing up or who are buying this thing start thinking, I'm driving this thing up. Maybe if I pull out of the market for a few days, it'll come back in and I can finish buying it at a better price. And you get this sideways action. But the key to it is that you get the lower volume. Because think about it, people are stepping out of the market. So see how, that's like the low volume.
Yep.
The traditional way of thinking about this, if it was high volume, it would probably be a reversal. But because it's low volume, it's really just a break in the trend. So, a lot of people, they look at these patterns and they say this looks like that or that looks like this, but they don't really understand what it is that the patterns are illustrating. Let's see what Berkshire Hathaway looks like here. Yeah, now this to me looks like this is Berkshire and it's up again. This looks a little bit overbought to me. So this, so this might come in a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be like anything, dramatic or whatever. But yeah, look at that. Jeez. So Berkshire.
That's crazy, as expensive as that stock is, or as big as that company is, for it to go up like that. Of course, insurance premiums aren't cheap either.
I know, man. Houses going up, cars are going up. And they blame it on global warming because they say there's more there's more disasters now. So we're going to
I got told at the insurance office that it's because lots of people don't buy insurance, so the people that do buy insurance are having to pay extra. I'm like, man, it's the law that I have to buy insurance. He's like, well, you're one of the only few that follow the law. I'm like, that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, like up here in Connecticut, you can't get you need insurance. But a lot of people don't have it.
if your insurance lapses, your license gets revoked, and if that happens, you're automatically getting a driving while license suspended or revoked, and that charge right there will haunt you for years because people forget that court date. They don't want to go to court for their driver's license because they forget it's a privilege, and I've watched people go to prison for a driver's license.
Are you serious?
Oh hell yes.
Wow, that seems a little.
That is one charge I do not write anymore. And actually, I'm trying to retire. But as I was finishing out my business, I just wouldn't do a driving while license suspended or revoked because people don't go to court for it. And so the bail bondsman has to pay, and then I have to go find them, and it's just a big giant expense.
Really, that's interesting. I didn't know you would go to jail for something like that.
Absolutely.
Well, anyway. Yeah. All right. So healthcare continues to move ahead here. So it's pretty much what's been going on, right? Tech is weak, but pretty much everything else looks good. Here's our industrials. Trading up a little bit this morning. Communication services. All right. Here's an example of a stock hitting resistance at a level that was resistance before. Resistance becomes resistance, right? And yeah, now it looks like it's kind of heading lower here. So let's look at Google and Facebook because those are the biggest companies in this sector. Yeah, so Google is, looking kind of weak here. People think it's big tech, and I guess in a lot of ways it is, but this is really in the communication services sector, as is Facebook. Communication services used to be part of the tech sector, but they broke it up when it got too big. But now look at this. All right, so here's probably something to look at for an idea on the short side if tech keeps kind of breaking down. So you notice how the level that was support became resistance here, right? And that's what we're testing right this morning. This
Pin to it.
This is like 521.10 here, and we're at 520. So if Facebook doesn't get back above 520 in the next couple days, I would think it's probably going to start to make a tradable move lower. I mean, nothing dramatic or drastic, but you don't need to be a chart guru to see this, right? The blue team is in charge, and it looks like the red team just took over.
Yep.
Markets are always trending; they're always going up, down, or sideways. Now, what's kind of amazing is if you think about it, like what happened on this day that made Facebook lose 1.3% of its value. And on this day, lost 74 basis points of its value. And nothing has really changed. I mean, look at this day. It opened here at 521 and it closed at 497 or 498. So what happened over the course of the day that made Facebook lose 4.5% of its valuation? And this just shows you that, just think about that. This just shows you how this is all psychology, right? I mean, it opened at 521. 2 days later, it was down to 451. So what happened in that time period that made Facebook lose that much value? If you're looking at this from a fundamental point of view, and the answer is nothing. The only thing that's changed is the psychology, trader perceptions, investor perceptions.
God, 10 puts would have made what, $50,000 on that trade?
Yeah, I mean, I know hindsight is 2020, but this is a really good example of weak action. I mean, it opened here, but by the close, it gave it all back. So I don't know what happened on this day, August 1st. Maybe it was their earnings or whatever, but yeah. Anyway, so that looks kind of weak here. Let's look at some of these other big ones here. Tesla.
We got a couple in the chat too when you get a chance.
Yeah, see Tesla 205 is probably kind of important there.
ALB.
Now this is a this is a uranium. Do they do uranium? I think, or no? I'm sure someone out there knows.
Scroll down; it'll tell you at the bottom of that. They usually have what the company does at the very bottom.
Really? Well, let's see here. Well, here's what I would be looking at on this. This is something that looks to me like there's a chance it reverses here too, because look at this price level here of like 90.60, right? So it was support, this stock rallies, and where does it hit resistance? So this is not a coincidence that this is where it hit resistance. It hit resistance here because it was a support level over here. So you got your people who bought here, who, when the stock falls apart, they're like, oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have bought this. If it ever gets back up to my price, I'm going to sell and get out at break even. So this is why levels that were support can turn into resistance. And this morning it is 88.59. So this is the level to watch here.
Says they engage in the development, manufacture, and marketing of chemicals for consumer electronics, petroleum refining, utilities, packaging, blah, 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 a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I must be thinking about something else.
Operates in the energy storage sector.
Now, here's another example of our old little descending triangle pattern. So again, if something is at support and you're wondering, man, is this support going to break or not? If you see these lower highs are what kind of makes this descending triangle formation, there's a good chance that it breaks. At least that's been my experience. I don't know if you can really quantify it, but as time is going by here, the buyers are hanging out. The buyers are content with just waiting for the sellers to come to them. But the sellers are getting more aggressive as time goes by. They're willing to sell at lower prices. So the descending triangle pattern is an illustration of aggressive sellers and patient or complacent buyers. Doesn't matter what market it's in, you get aggressive sellers and complacent buyers. It's going to set the stage for the price to go lower. You can even see the same kind of little pattern here. I mean, it's not, textbook, but it's the same idea. It's like the buyers are willing to hang out, but the sellers are getting more aggressive.
PDD.
Ooh, what the hell happened there? Yeah, now here's yeah, I mean, I think we looked at this yesterday, right? And
We did. That's a Chinese company. But the bounce this morning's up $2.
Yeah, and we put this level in here, right? Because it was resistance here and support here. And where does the sell-off find a bottom? Right where we put this black line here yesterday, or actually it's a blue line. We're going to say like 90.60, but yeah, so it's not a coincidence that this is where the sell-off stopped here. Let's take a look at the volume.
We'll check that out next, Dennis.
Yeah, see, a lot of times when you get these at the end of a trend, you get this big volume here, right? And I guess this is well, I don't know if it's a total capitulation, but a lot of times when you get a big move and you get a big spike in volume, what happens is like everyone who wants to sell goes ahead and does. I mean, not everyone, but a vast majority of people that want to sell, they're watching this thing go lower and lower and lower, and finally, they're like, you know what, the hell with this. I just want to sell it. I just want to get out of it, and I just want to get out. I don't care about my price. If you're in the institutional world and just say you get an order to sell 100,000 shares, you sell 10,000 here, 10,000 there, you're waiting for it to come back up. You sell another 10,000 here, then it's like it keeps going down, and it's like, you know what, at least 70,000 shares to sell. Just go out there and puke them out. Get rid of them. I don't want to hear about it. Now, if people start to think like, gee, that news was bad, but it's not as bad as the market perceives it, and they come in as buyers, well, they have a hard time finding sellers. So I think Maru asked yesterday about volume, and I said I don't really look at it, but this is a case where I do. I look at volume pretty much for two things. One is to see if something is liquid enough to trade. I mean, if something trades 1,000 shares a day, you probably don't want to get in it. But the other thing is something like this, because there's a good chance that this volume here shows that there's, between the fact that it's really oversold, it's at a support level, and we have this big spike in volume, there's a good chance that it moves higher. But I wouldn't get in until it starts to move, right? Let's see. This morning, it's up 2% this morning.
Yeah. So if you're going to do like an option strategy on this, and it was a long option, say you go up to this 140, which is the top of the gap, what, like 4 or 5 months away?
Yeah. I guess so. I mean, when I trade options, I'm always like kind of short term.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if this thing starts to move higher, if it holds, it'll probably take a day or two to see. But yeah, I mean, there's a chance that I don't know the company well enough to really kind of talk about what the earnings are. Doom falls over one of China's most successful e-commerce. Yeah, that's another thing that's kind of hard to decipher sometimes with these Chinese companies because they have different, accounting standards and so forth. There's Alibaba.
Well, JD as well, man. JD's down to like into the 20s, and it was up as high as 85 here 4 months ago, 6 months ago.
JDSU.
No, JD.com.
Oh, sorry.
Just JD. Yeah, right there. Oh, excuse me, 2 months ago. Well, it was 36, but it was up in the 80s.
Yeah. I think going into the election here, if it looks like Trump's going to win, there's probably going to be, some short ideas on some of these green energy things here. Like this is the wind ETF.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these companies survive only, and then this is the solar one, TAN.
Through
These companies
subsidies.
survive only because of government subsidies. If they weren't getting government subsidies, they wouldn't be able to run. And if Trump becomes president, he's probably going to cut all that stuff off, and then these stocks are going to just get really hammered. So you look at the run up here after the election,
Oh, wow.
and got all the way up to 130. And again, this is based really just on hype. It's in psychology, and that's what the market is. When we look at a chart, we're looking at psychology. Like, why did what was support here become support again there, and become support again there, and then become resistance here? That's psychology. People sold and they experience remorse when the price goes higher. They say, if it gets back to my price, I'm going to buy it back. Same thing over here. And then here's buyer's remorse. People who bought here, assuming they still hold it, when the stock broke down below their level, they're like, this sucks. If I can get out at break even, I'm going to. So, and you could also see here too, pretty clear support. But anyway, I mean, I think it's probably a little too soon. But I guess if you have strong feelings about the election and you think that Trump's going to win, maybe
Man, I
buy
don't know.
that go out to like December or early next year.
I don't know how anybody could vote for 44.8% and then tax on unrealized gains, but there will be a slew of people that does.
I mean, gosh, can you imagine? Well, supposedly that's only for people that have over $100 million. So it's not going to affect me.
Okay, yeah, whatever. They weren't supposed to tax people under 400,000 either, and they weren't supposed to give out student loan bailouts when the Supreme Court said not to do it, but they're still doing it.
I know, it's amazing. The whole Democratic thing is like, oh, Trump's a threat to democracy.
And
These
they're
are the
just destroying the
Joe Biden
Constitution.
ignores the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Well,
They
it's not made up of liberals. If it was made up of liberals, he'd be doing exactly what they told him to do. Of course, they'd have already seized power, and we'd all be wearing neck collars with GPS locators on it.
and now there's I mean, if Kamala Harris wins the presidency and the Democrats take the House and the Senate, just think there's going to be some historic stuff going on that's bad, like stacking the Supreme Court or having term limits on the Supreme Court. Now, if you read the founding fathers, who, I think that there's a good chance that Alexander Hamilton and James Madison were probably a little bit smarter than people like Andrea Ocasio-Cortez.
Oh, yeah. Just a
The
bit.
reason why a
Smidge.
Supreme Court justice is a job that you get and there's no term limits is because if the person who's the judge ever needs to go back into the private sector, it could affect the rulings on on whatever cases that it is that they're trying. So you have no term limits in the Supreme Court for a reason, and that's it. If you were only a Supreme Court justice for 10 years and you're 50 years old and you don't want to retire, but you have to, and
Right.
all of a sudden there's a company that you've been interviewing with and it comes before the court for some issue. I mean, it's going to bias you. And now it's like, the other thing too is democracy. We don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic. All right. That's another thing. Like if you went up to 20 people on the street and said, is the United States a democracy? That probably 19 of them would say yes.
It's a constitutional republic, man. That gets in my skin so bad when I see people say democracy, Mark, because we are nothing like a democracy. It's a joke. It really is. Nobody knows civics. Nobody knows a whole lot anymore. It's just a sad state of affairs.
And that's why, again, if you read the founding fathers of the Federalist Papers, the reason why we have an electoral college is because if the elector thinks that there was fraud or whatever, they don't need to vote. Like, you don't vote for the president, you vote for the elector, and they go to the electoral college and they pass their votes. But if the reason why we have the reason why we have the electoral college is because if, say, candidate A wins and that's your district or whatever, you're the elector, but there was blatant fraud and there was fraud and candidate B should have won if it wasn't for this fraud, the elector is not held to voting for candidate A. They could say, you know what, people want me to vote for candidate A, but there's all this crazy crooked stuff going on, so I'm going to vote for candidate B. So that's the brilliance of the electoral college. And all these people that, I mean, come on, man. Look at our country. Kim Kardashian. Do you really think our people are smart enough to rule themselves or to govern themselves? I don't think so.
Q's. Check out the Q's.
Oh yeah, Q's. Sorry.
Well, I think that's what the news media relies on, is that people are going to listen to headlines and sound bites and little shorts on YouTube, and they can spit whatever they want. But I tell you, one of the most revealing videos I watched was I watched Kamala when she became, right before she became the state, it wasn't the state attorney, it was the attorney general of California. And she was talking about how when she was 22, she learned about the power of her pen, because she could, with just a swipe of her pen, she could put people in jail and she could let people out, or she could extend their stay, and she could really ruin their lives with a swipe of her pen. That video is going around, and I'm hoping I can find it again, because I'd like to clip it and share it with you guys, because that's a pretty disgusting way to think of things.
She's an idiot. Let's face the facts, man. I mean, if I was a Democrat, I'd be pretty upset that we got 4 years of Biden and now we might get her. I mean, geez.
Oh man, and we got a gap here too.
Yeah, I mean, I think tech is probably going to go lower here. This level is like 475. I mean, if I was to take a short position on the Qs here, 475 would be my initial stop out. In other words, if I was buying puts and for some reason this thing just reversed and got back above 475, that's where I would close out for a small loss. But given what happened with Nvidia, the fact that it had good numbers and the stock is basically getting crushed, I think that really says a lot about the tech sector. And here's probably what I would be watching, right? Apple's got this clear support level here around 225. And then Microsoft is testing support as well. So if you're going to trade Qs, keep an eye on this here, because if this starts to give way here, I don't know if it's going to today, because it is the Thursday before a long weekend, so it might be pretty quiet. But I think the key to the Qs is right over here. If Microsoft breaks this level and starts to head lower, then that's going to really bring the Qs down as well. And then if Apple breaks its respective support level, then you're going to get a pretty good sell-off in the tech sector. Now, again, it's like the market is doing well with the exception of tech. But Apple's trading up this morning pretty good. So, yeah, I mean, if I was thinking about the Qs, I would be watching Microsoft. You got to remember the Qs are a collection of stocks, and if we look at let's look at the QQQ.
That was funny, Mary. That's not all she found out she had that was powerful.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, hey, man, I guess it's not the first time it's happened, right? Invesco QQQ. Let's see what the companies are here. So here are the Qs, and we're going to look at the holdings. And you could see, Apple's 9%, Nvidia is 8%, Microsoft is 8%. So there's 100 stocks in this, hence the name, the NASDAQ 100. But you got these three guys here that are responsible for basically 25% of it. Costco's in there. Let's see what Costco looks like. People ask me, like, did the ETFs move? Ooh, look at that. That's some pretty negative action here.
That is.
I would be looking at this for a short idea here. So yeah, I mean, this is your classic outside reversal day or bearish engulfing pattern. It looked like it was going to be another up day, right? This is where we opened. It was higher than the prior day's close. But by yesterday's close, what had happened? The sellers pushed it all the way back down. Where did we find support? The level that was resistance back here. So if this starts to give way, I think this is a good idea here for a reversal. Or, I mean, the reversal might have already started. But if this thing gets down to like 885 or so, that's where I would be thinking about jumping in on the short side. And you can see, here's our classic, fast move up, spend some time trading sideways, and then you go fast right back down through those same price levels. Every chart is a lesson in some way.
Yeah.
Here's support here becomes resistance here. So this is the 1-day chart, and this is like what I call the fractal nature of charting. You see the same patterns in different time frames, and it's because you're just looking at the psychology of people that are trading with different time horizons. What separates the Qs from the SPY? Well, the SPY is the S&P 500, and it includes stocks from all different it includes all sectors. It's the S&P 500. The Qs is the NASDAQ 100. It's the 100 biggest stocks on the NASDAQ that aren't in the financial sector. So they have different makeups. The companies that are the biggest in either, or the companies that are biggest are going to be the biggest in both of them. But if you kind of dig down a little bit deeper, they're very different in their construction. Like, for example, one of the biggest parts of the S&P 500 is financials. There's no financials in the Qs. So therein is So that's that's the answer. People ask me, like, do the stocks move the ETFs or do the ETFs move the stocks? And the answer is, it really kind of depends on what comes first. If money moves into the stocks, it could affect the ETF. If money goes into the ETF, it's going to affect the stocks. So that's one of those questions where there really isn't any answer. But yeah, that's a good question.
U.S. consumer spending increased 22% in 2022 for energy consumption because of inflation. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Check out natural gas when you get a chance in a while. Did you look at oil already?
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, let's look at natural gas here. Yeah, so I mean, look at this, right? I mean, where did we hit resistance over the last 2 days? Same price that was support over here.
So here's the other portion of the question. XOK moves the Qs, so does XLF move the SPY?
Yeah. Either or. It depends where the money is coming in. The S&P 500 is, it's these 500 stocks and it's these 11 sectors. So if one of the sectors is really strong, it's going to make the market, the S&P 500, go up. The S&P 500 is the sum of its parts. So yeah. I mean, if the S&P goes up, the financials are going to go up, probably, right? If the financials go up, it could bring the S&P up. It really depends where the money comes first. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really, like, just say right now someone came in and was going to buy $1 billion worth of the XLF, and drove it up 10%. Well, that's going to make the S&P 500 go up because a big part of it, a part of one of the sectors is up a lot. Now, let's just say someone came in and wanted to buy $1 billion worth of the SPY, and that's going to push it up. Well, that would bring all of the sectors up as well. So it's the market is the sum of its parts. And if you look at the different parts, that's why we look at these sectors, is because if you look at the sectors, you can get insight into what's going to happen in the broader market a lot of times. I mean, it's never going to be this easy, but let's just say that 10 sectors are completely flat. They haven't moved. And you have one sector that's up huge and it's really overbought and it's at resistance. Well, because the one sector is up, it's going to bring the broader market higher. If that one sector looks vulnerable, if it's really overbought and it's at resistance and it looks like it might go down, well, that's going to make the S&P go down. So it's usually not that simple. But by looking at the different sectors, you can get insight into the broader markets. But that's a good question. All right, if anyone else has any other questions, let me know. And if not, I'm going to get going.
Do us a favor, like, subscribe, share, and if you guys would, go back and listen to the first opening scene of the video. Man, that is some beautiful, beautiful guitar playing by Mark Petrino. I'm serious. It's my favorite song that you do, buddy. Listen, You guys have a wonderful day. Good luck in trading, and we'll see you tomorrow.